3 weeks after the silver flame vanished from the Ashen Marsh, a lone rider approached Velmoria's capital gates. His armor was plain, dented, unworthy of notice. But carved into his chest, not with blade but as if etched by fire, was the mark of the broken circle, the sigil once worn by Malgrin the Dreaded. The guards raised their bows. He did not flinch. "I carry a message for the sovereign," the young man said. "I come not with sword, but truth." They tried to seize him. Every one of them fell unconscious before they could touch him. No wounds, no sound, just silence. By morning, Kaelin Varys stood in the Phoenix Court before Ellyra Darnan. Ellyra had grown thinner in the past weeks, lines beneath her eyes, a streak of gray in her braid. She had read over 100 reports of towns falling silent, of dreams twisting into doctrine, of children singing songs no one taught them. Now, the boy they called the Echoborn stood before her. She expected malice, madness, or fear. Instead, she saw clarity. "You've been touched by something," she said. "What is it?" Kaelin didn't kneel. "I've been given a choice," he said. "And so have you. Speak plainly." "I saw what Malgrin was, what he still is. Not a ghost, not a god, but a scar, passed from ruler to ruler. Carried in story, in fear, in the way we remember him." "He was real," Ellyra said. "We fought him. We buried him. And yet," Kaelin replied, "here he stands between us." He placed a folded parchment on the table. Ellyra opened it. Inside was a single line, written in a script that had not existed in Velmoria for centuries. "You remember the tyrant. But have you remembered the fear?" Weeks later, copies of the Gospel of the Scarred King began to appear across Velmoria. No one knew who wrote it, but everyone claimed to have heard parts of it in dreams, in whispers, in the wind. It told a different story. That Malgrin was not a man, but a mirror. That every crown bore his reflection. That every time a ruler acted out of fear, he lived again. It was not a call to worship, but a warning. Still, some began to gather in secret, not to serve Malgrin, but to study him, to understand the pattern of tyranny. They called themselves the Broken Circle, and some began to believe he had been right, that only fear could maintain order, that peace was a myth weaker than a sword. Ellyra's court fractured. Some advisors urged her to ban the gospel, to hunt down its authors, to crush the cult forming around the tyrant's myth. Others warned her, "Do that and she becomes the thing she fears." Ellyra stood in her mirror room once again. This time, the mirror showed her not Malgrin, not herself, but Kaelin, standing on a balcony, speaking to thousands below, all listening as if he were prophecy made flesh. Ellyra summoned Kaelin to speak before the Council of the Flame, the highest gathering of Velmoria's remaining provinces. Her enemies expected a trial. Her allies expected a spectacle. What they got was something else. Kaelin stepped to the center of the chamber and said, "Malgrin ruled by fear. Ellyra rules by responsibility. And now you must choose neither. You must choose memory. The tyrant lives not because we want him to, but because we haven't learned how not to. Because we think power protects us, when it's fear we've learned to serve. Burn the throne, not the ruler. Burn the myth, not the man." Silence. Then, one by one, the counselors stood. Some in support, some in rage, but all realizing, Velmoria could not continue as it was. The next day, Ellyra made a decree. One no king or queen in Velmoria had ever dared. "The Phoenix throne is hereby dissolved. There shall be no sovereign, no crown. Power will rest in the voices of the people, in councils, in cities, in those who remember why we fought." And with that, she placed the iron circlet, now cracked and rusted, into the flame of Ashar, the eternal fire at the heart of the capital. It burned, not with smoke, but with silence. Malgrin's memory screamed in the flame, and was gone. Kaelin disappeared shortly after. Some say he was seen in the mountain cities, teaching history without names. Others believe he was never truly human, but a piece of the story itself, broken free and walking until the tale was told right. Velmoria did not become a utopia. There were still wars, still power struggles, still fear. But one thing had changed. When children spoke of Malgrin, they no longer said, "He ruled with fear." They said, "He taught us what fear does." And when they lit candles in memory of the past, they did not light them for kings. They lit them for the choice not to become one. It had been 74 years since Elira Darnan cast the last crown into the flame of Ashar. Velmoria, once ruled by fire and fear, had become something else entirely, a patchwork of free cities, self-governing councils, wandering scholars, and public archives known as the memory houses. There were no monarchs, no palaces, no statues of Elira or Malgrin. Only books, testimonies, warnings. Children were taught not to obey blindly, but to question. Laws were built by consensus, not decree. And in the capital, now called Ashfall, the largest archive in the world held the Black Books, bound volumes that contained everything known about tyranny, trauma, and the legend of the Dread King. He was no longer feared. He was studied. He was safely buried in memory. Or so they thought. Her real name was Varen Elishay, but she went by Vale. She was 25, a junior archivist in the Ashfall Memory House, with hair the color of rusted iron and a habit of asking questions that made older scholars uncomfortable. One evening, while deep in the vaults below the archive, she discovered a page that shouldn't have existed. It wasn't inked. It was carved into the inside of another book's spine. 12 words. I am not remembered in history. I am remembered in fear. There was no signature, but the writing matched the descriptions of Malgrin's private cipher, long thought lost. And that night, Vale began to dream. The dreams were not like stories. They were warnings. A sky that bled silver fire. A library in flames, books screaming as they burned. People wearing no chains, yet bowing to shadows that whispered of safety. And standing above it all, not Malgrin, but a figure wearing Elira's face, with hollow eyes and a voice that said, "We burned the tyrant, but we kept the throne." Vale awoke each time with a single word on her lips. Ashbind. A word not in any known tongue. She searched every book, every coded archive. Nothing. Until a forbidden vault yielded a single clue. Behind a false panel in the archive's 5th tier, Vale found an iron scroll tube, locked with a seal that matched the ancient sigil of the Broken Circle. Inside, a letter dated 40 years after Elira's death, written by a former disciple of Kaelin Varys. The memory of tyranny is only safe if it is told whole. If we cleanse too much, if we make heroes of rebels and monsters of kings, we bury truth and plant myth in its place. The danger is not that we'll crown another tyrant. The danger is we'll forget what made one. Ashbind is real. It is the name of what remains. And it does not need a crown to rule. The deeper Vale looked, the more she uncovered fragments. A forgotten village, abandoned in a single night, all books blackened by unseen fire. A list of names found etched into tree bark, all of whom had vanished across the free cities. And a children's rhyme, recorded in 5 different regions. Ashbind walks when memory sleeps, with silent hands and secrets deep. No crown it wears, no sword it swings. It lives in laws and little things. Ashbind wasn't a person. It was a phenomenon. A force that rose whenever people grew too proud of their freedom. Whenever they believed the story had ended. One night, Vale returned to the memory house to find the Black Book Hall in flames. No one saw who lit it. No one saw who locked the doors behind them. The fire burned clean, precise, destroying only the volumes that recorded Malgrin's final days, Elira's letters, and Kaelin Varys' testimonies. The memory was burning. Again. And in the smoke, Vale heard something. Not a voice. A breath. As if the building itself exhaled. The free cities responded with panic. In some, new laws were passed banning any discussion of tyrants or the old wars, to protect public morale. In others, Councils quietly appointed emergency leaders for national stability. People began to say, "We need order again," and the name Malgrin, once studied, dissected, safely disarmed, became feared again.